Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and good afternoon, good evening, depending on where in the world you are joining us from. Welcome to the launch event for the 2021 International Year for the Elimination of Child Labour. My name is Nozi Shabalala, and what an absolute privilege it is to serve you today as the moderator of this really important conversation. We've gathered far and wide in our shared conviction to galvanize more action in 2021. This is a special year. It's a year where we can turn our commitments into action and put the world on a trajectory to end child labor in all its forms by 2025. Now, if one thing is true, it's that many small actions in many parts of the world can contribute to huge global change. Indeed, it is the only way that we have overcome global challenges, from ending slavery in 1865 to dismantling apartheid in 1994. And so in the very same spirit and in this very same vein, as we look to target 8.7 of the Sustainable Development Goals that calls for the elimination of child labor by 2025, we know that this can be achieved. And it can be achieved when all stakeholders take coordinated and measurable steps forward. And ladies and gentlemen, I think it's important for us to also pause to think about the context of where the world is today, because it matters and has bearing on today's conversation. If we fail to act decisively, COVID-19 may reverse the years of progress that we have made towards the elimination of child labor. And so we have to tighten our resolve for collective action, and we have to think about children and eliminating child labor even as we respond to this pandemic, and even as we look at different recovery packages, we've got to have children and the elimination of child labor at the center. And so in this conversation, you are going to be hearing from child labor survivor. You're going to be hearing from world leaders that are at the forefront of really galvanizing global action, but you're also going to hear from a range of stakeholders who are putting their shoulders to the wheel and taking action today and in the years to come until we achieve target 8.7. And so, ladies and gentlemen, this conversation is an invitation. It's an invitation to take action in big and in small ways. And one of the ways that you can embrace and accept this invitation is by starting with just amplifying the conversation on our social media platforms. The hashtag that we're using today and that we're going to be using for the rest of the year is hashtag End Child Labor 2021. That is hashtag End Child Labor 2021. You can also visit our website, and that is www.endchildlabor2021.org. Now, for us to have a really fantastic conversation, I also just would like to invite you to make use of our interpretation services in French and Spanish if you would like that translation. For now, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome perhaps one of the most important voices today. This is the voice of a child labor survivor. Amar Lal, ladies and gentlemen, is a 24-year-old lawyer. Today, he spends his time advocating for the rights of children, and specifically for the rights for children to be free from child labor. He has participated in a number of international initiatives, including the World Congress for Education. But his childhood started from a very different place. It started in a stone quarry in India. Amar, welcome. Thank you so much for making the time to join us.
Thanks, Nozi.
Now, Amar, as a child, you worked in a stone quarry in India. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience?
Hello, namaste, everyone. My life was at risk every single day. The nature of work I was doing, like breaking the stones, putting those stones into the trucks, it was always a risk of being crushed by those stones or having stones fallen on me. If I fell sick, there was no hospital. that I could go for treatment. With no concept of broader world, the only reality was stone quarry. I could not imagine any other kind of life. I had no knowledge of education. I was born in bonded labor. This has been reality in my family across generation, from my grandparents through to me. This was my life earlier.
Amar, thank you very much for sharing that. So we are seeing that intergenerational play, especially that becomes evident in the absence of decisive action. But maybe a second question to you, Amar. What was the turning point in your life that has really helped you to get to where you are today?
When my parents became aware of the importance of education and the lives of other children who went to school, an activist from BBA, Save the Childhood Movement, helped them understand the benefit of education and how it could break this generation chain of bonded labor. I was also inspired by the children, my friends who were living in Balasram. This is a rehabilitation center, ideal center for children education, and also Bhai Sabji, who brought me in this life and in this new world.
Amar, you are, go ahead, Amar. Okay. You are a lawyer today, and you are an advocate for children's rights. And from your point of view, I'd really like to know, do you think that world leaders across their sectors, and I mean public sector, the private sector, civil society, do you believe that they are using their influence and doing enough today to fight child labor and to really eliminate child labor?
I think much has been done, but this is not enough. As a lawyer, I learned laws, regulations, policies, but as their own are not enough. We need a commitment to implementation and commitment to enforcement and commitment to action now. We need action in 2021. As I said earlier, there was a time when I couldn't imagine my life out of stone quarry. But today, I would like to challenge everyone who are sitting today, who are participating today, to not just only imagine a world without child labor, but to act on it so it becomes our reality. Every child should have their fair share. Fair share for education, fair share for freedom, fair share for justice. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you so much, Amar. Thank you so much for your story. Thank you so much for your generosity. And thank you so much for the authenticity with which you have shared it. Ladies and gentlemen, I do hope that we're going to pick up on the challenge that Amar has given to us. And that is not only to imagine a world without child labor, but to act on bringing that world about. And as he said in his own words, such that every child has a fair share to education, to justice, and every other opportunity that many other children around the world enjoy. And so at this point in our conversation, we're going to turn our focus from Amar's inspiring story to a conversation with inspiring leaders who, as I've mentioned, are at the forefront of enabling the global response to end child labor by 2025. And so it's my great pleasure at this moment to welcome the Director General of the International Labour Organization, Mr. Guy Ryder, to welcome the Executive Director of UNICEF, Madame Henrietta Fore, and to also welcome Nobel Peace Laureate, Mr. Kailash Satyarthi, for the conversation that we're going to turn to now. And perhaps I would start with you, Mr. Ryder. In Amar's view, And in the story that we've just heard, he has told us that we need to do more for children in child labor. And I want to really emphasize the word more. And so the question to you, DG, is what more will the ILO be doing together with its constituents, government, labor, and business? What more will you be doing in this year of action such that we might be able to eliminate child labor by 2025? Over to you, DG.
Well, thank you very much, José. And it's a particular privilege to speak after Amar, because he really has put the challenge before us all in the clearest possible terms. Let's remember, the world has already made a commitment to eliminate all forms of child labor by 2025. And our year has to be, as you've said yourself, the moment when we really do make sure that commitment is acted upon. So what does this action look like? What must it look like? Well, let's remember that there are still 152 million children in child labor right now. It looks like an extraordinary figure, but let's also put that against the successes of the past, because there are 100 million less child laborers today than there were at the beginning of this century. We can do this, but we have to do more, as Amar has said. What does that look like? Well, I think partnership really matters. All of us can make our own efforts, however big, however small. But I think by working together, we're going to join up the dots and have this broad approach to the elimination of child labor that the problem really demands of us. So what would those partnerships be? Well, the ILO has a very strong partnership already with UNICEF in all matters to do with children and young people. And Henrietta is going to talk about that very soon. What about the agricultural sector? We know there's a very high concentration of child labor in the agricultural world. Well, our partnership with the FAO has to respond to that. We know that a lot of child labor occurs in situations of conflict and fragility. Our friends at the IOM know all about that, the International Organization on Migration. We already have strong alliances in place. Alliance 8.7, one of the really strong alliances to have grown out of the 2030 agenda. We need to push that forward much more. Working with Kailash Satyarthi and his foundation to make sure that the fight against child labor is really embedded in the broader need to invest more and more broadly in young people. And of course, the inbuilt partnership at the ILO between governments, employers, and workers. We need to combine all of these things and work together in a really coherent way. And the ILO in itself will be producing new global estimates on the levels of child labor. Doesn't sound very exciting. More numbers, do we need them? Well, yes, we do, because when we know what works and doesn't work and see where the numbers are going down and where the problems lie, we can tailor our efforts to meet the needs that are still out there. And lastly, Nosy, it will come after the international year, but we're all getting ready, and this year is a great sort of run towards that for the 5th Global Conference for the Elimination of Child Labour, which we hope will be hosted in South Africa next year. So it's an enormously important time. And yes, we've got the problem of COVID-19. If we don't step up our game, the risk is real that we go backwards instead of going forwards as we must. So that just needs to be an extra incentive for us to do more. And you're right, it's not about commitments, it's not about the type of speeches I make, it's about the action that we can generate together.
A very massive thank you to you, Mr. Ryder. You've really given us a solid starting point, building on Amar's story. I've heard a number of messages in what you've shared. You've spoken about the importance of partnership and how amazing that all of the organizations that you have mentioned in your remark are with us today, also pledging their commitment and their action. You've spoken about the importance of numbers and understanding the data so that we know whether we're moving forwards or moving backwards. And of course, you've spoken about the impact of COVID-19 and having to be real about that. And I do know that Minister THULAS from South Africa is with us. And so as the upcoming host, I'm sure will be also pledging on behalf of South Africa. A very big thank you to you, Guy Ryder. I turn my focus now to Madame Henrietta Fore. And Madame, thank you very much for joining us. The question that I'd like to bring to you is really a question of the time we find ourselves in. We know that the pandemic can mean that we are facing the risk of reversing the many years of progress that could lead to an increase, in fact, in child labor for the first time in 20 years. Mr. Guy Ryder has spoken about the partnership between the ILO and UNICEF, and as part of that partnership, we did see you uncovering how this crisis is affecting child labor. And in fact, you delivered a joint statement alongside the DG in marking World Day Against Child Labor just last year. So my question to you, Madame Fore, is this: in what ways might we ensure that we don't lose momentum and that in fact the actions that we take from here on actually move us forward? Over to you.
Thank you, Nosy. It's a really good question. The momentum and the action is going to be very important this year if we're going to make that call for a commitment that Guy Ryder just eloquently talked about. So let me begin a bit with how we're seeing it from a child's point of view. We believe that the COVID-19 pandemic has really cracked open and exacerbated the vulnerabilities of children for child labor. Even before the pandemic, we were dealing with the issues that Guy and Amal have been talking about: rising poverty and low wages, eroding social protections, lack of quality education, and normalization of children's work through weak laws and a culture of impunity in many countries around the world. With the devastating impacts of COVID-19, especially at the household level, more children are vulnerable to the exploitative and hazardous forms of work. So Amar's challenge to all of us is a real one. For millions of children who are already engaged in child labor, the pandemic is translating into longer working hours and worsening conditions. School closures are making matters even worse. Lingering gender inequalities continue to make girls more vulnerable to exploitation in agricultural work, which is what Guy was talking about, or that they have to stay home doing housework while their brothers continue with their education. And lockdowns and mobility restrictions have dramatically reduced access to child protection services and workplace inspections. But we are seeing hopeful signs in this. As Guy said, we can do this. Many governments have accelerated efforts to deploy social workers in the community, equipping them with mobile phones and digital technology. Some are strengthening online learning platforms, and some are expanding social protection programs like cash transfers that target the most vulnerable families. We can all be inspired by these efforts, but as we mark the International Year of the Elimination of Child Labor, we must do more. So UNICEF is calling for more investment in child protection programs that prevent and respond to all forms of violence, abuse, and exploitation, including child labor. As a global community, we need to reimagine education to improve both quality and quantity to reach every child and young person. And this includes digital technology and remote learning. UNICEF is gathering partners around the needs, including the need to connect every school in the world to the internet through the GIGA initiative. And it means teaching skills to make a livelihood through the Generation Unlimited initiative. As jurisdictions look at reopening schools, we need to reduce dropout rates through supplementary programs such as school feeding, free uniforms, and books. Anything to keep children where they belong, which is in school and learning so they can build a future. We need more social protection programs to keep households and allow them to make ends meet. Throughout, we need businesses to step up and to ensure that conduct across their supply chains that addresses child labor, There is just no excuse anymore to have child labor in your supply chain. And we need governments to strengthen child labor regulations across the board, from laws and policies to workplace inspections to child protection, systems that can support children who want to return to school. And ILO is a critical partner here. This year is a unique opportunity to shine a spotlight on child labor and rally the world behind our call to end it once and for all. As we emerge from the pandemic, let us emerge with stronger systems that can support a child's right to safety and to education, to the future of his or her choosing to be a lawyer along with Amar, and to support families as they deal with the economic fallout of COVID-19. UNICEF looks forward to working with our partners across governments, businesses, trade unions, civil society, and of course, children and young people themselves to make this happen. So thank you very much, Nosy.
Thank you very much, Madame Fore, and a message that I'm sure is going to resonate and create ripples in our conversations. That what I'm hearing you say, may we emerge stronger with stronger systems that are going to enable safety and education to be a reality for every child, irrespective of where they are in the world. I also heard a lot of very ambitious but achievable targets, including connecting every school to the internet. And I think that certainly might be one of the things we should be working towards. Thank you very much, Madame Fore. I turn my focus now, ladies and gentlemen, to invite Mr. Kailash Satyarthi to the floor. Now, sir, we heard in Amar's story the trajectory of how his life changed. And the question I'd like to bring to you then is, what type of action do you believe civil society should be taking if we're really going to move the needle when it comes to fighting and eliminating child labor by 2025? Over to you.
Thank you, Nosy Fore. And I would like to thank Amar Lal for his challenge, and Brother Guy Ryder and Sister Henrietta for their wonderful response. Amar Lal is my adorable child. We are celebrating his freedom. But Amar Lal is not free, because 152 million children like him are not free. And therefore, I am not free. You are not free. No one is free until every single child is freed from exploitation. I am proud to say that civil society, including NGOs, trade unions, teachers' organizations, businesses, media, faith institutions, have played significant role in the fight against child labor and its achievements. But now, in post-pandemic time, we cannot lose an entire generation. We cannot afford to lose all the achievements and progress we have made over the last few decades as civil society, as well as through the collective efforts. I can recall the global march against child labor, global campaign for education, and hundreds of thousands of local grassroots initiatives. Therefore, never before the need of strong, vibrant, dynamic civil society, united civil society was so important as it is today. We know that the child who is pushed into child labor and slavery is the same child who is denied education, who is living in abject poverty, who has no access to health, safety, and whose parents are not ensured decent wages and have no safety net of social protection programs. that child is one. But if we remain divided and fragmented, we cannot bring every child out of this crisis, out of this menace. There could be many interpretations and reasons for injustices, inequalities, and miseries prevailing in our society, rather growing in our society due to pandemic. But for me, the crux of the matter is that for generations, for centuries, we have not given fair share. We have denied the fair share for children in education, healthcare, protection, and every walks of life. That is unacceptable. And therefore, just after this kickoff event, kickstart event, civil society is going to launch history's one of the largest coalition and a campaign, Fair Share to End Child Labor campaign, that will strengthen this year and all the efforts. Our message is loud and clear. We are demanding fair share of resources, and that means budgetary allocations as well as the overseas development aids. Fair share of policies, and that means adequate laws and their timely enforcement, and fair share of social protection for the most marginalized children. Children are not willing to listen the rhetorics of good intent. As Amar Lal pointed out, that they need action and they need results. Their childhood cannot wait. They cannot wait. So, dear friends, I would say that we have enough knowledge of the problem. We have knowledge of solutions. We have resources. We have technologies. We have everything. What stops us to act? What are we waiting for? I urge you all to join and support ILO in this endeavor. I would also like to thank UN Secretary-General for marking this year. But I take this opportunity to request that he has to put his weight behind. Mr. Secretary-General, please organize a special session on child labor during the upcoming assembly. That will help, your weight will help in bending the arc of history in favor of the most marginalized children. I would also call upon the governments to support this demand for convening a special session. Dear friends, there is no other option. We have to march. We have to march from exploitation to education. I call upon you to march from commitment to action, from inertia to action, from promises and pledges to compassionate leadership and bold initiatives. Thank you so much.
A massive thank you to Mr. Kailash Satyarthi as he urges us to move from inertia to action. And perhaps one of the many insightful things that he's shared with us, and that is, if Amar is not free, you and I are not free. And so together we can work towards the freedom of every child around the world. It's a massive thank you from me to the Director General of the ILO, to the Executive Director of UNICEF, to Nobel Peace Laureate, Mr. Kailash Satyarthi. Indeed, we are ready for decisive action. Thank you for joining us and starting us off on such an inspirational note. Now, ladies and gentlemen, remember that the hashtag today and the hashtag throughout the year is End Child Labour 2021. We have a responsibility to amplify this conversation around the world as it happens. We're going to pick up the pace now, and we're going to change direction just a little bit. And so I'm going to invite you to join me now as we look to regions, to countries, and to organizations who are taking action to fight child labor. We welcome now the 2021 action pledges. And to do that, we're going to start off with this short video about the pledges, where all stakeholders are invited to identify an ambitious but achievable action that they will be taking during 2021 to drive progress in tackling child labor. Please do enjoy this short audiovisual. I do apologize, ladies and gentlemen, for the absence of the sound on that audio visual, but we're really grateful that there was text that really helped us to understand the core message in that video. We are talking about 3 pillars: action, to act, to inspire, and to scale up. And the deadline, of course, is the 30th of March. When we go through these pledges, we're also going to be inviting the chair of Alliance 8.7, who will also speak to us a little bit about what we can all do and how we can do that to participate and to respond to this particular action. Now, I'm going to start off with pledges from the UN organizations. Now, without UN organizations, ladies and gentlemen, organizations that are committed to target 8.7, the work ahead of us would just be simply insurmountable. And so, at 71%, the majority of child labor is found in the agricultural sector. We did hear Mr. Guy Ryder also mentioning the sector. The stats tell us today that about 108 million boys and girls are engaged in child labor in this sector. And so it's my pleasure now to welcome Mr. Chu DONGYU, who is, of course, the Director-General of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, to please share their 2021 action pledge. So over to you, sir. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, moderator. And ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Well, depends on where you are now. FAO pledged to intensify its work addressing the child labor in agriculture through the dedicated work program within the cooperative strategy framework. To achieve the SDG 8.7, we need a breakthrough in agriculture, while the child labor is frequently found. This year, we will step up our efforts to strengthening capacity of a wide range of agricultural sectors to include the child labor prevention and youth employment in their work. Policies, programs, investments related to agri-food systems needed to address the root causes of child labor, including household poverty. We will organize a series of FAO regional consultations among the agricultural sectors and the global event in November 2021 on child labor in agriculture to increase awareness of many good practices and promising experiences. The related outcomes will constitute a significant contribution on the important role of agriculture and the broad agri-food systems to the 5th Global Conference on Child Labour in 2022. FAO will continue to play the central role in the international partnership for cooperation on child labour in agriculture. Throughout the year, we will strengthen existing collaboration and seek new partners to jointly scale up our efforts. Thank you.
We thank you very much, Mr. Chu Dongyu, for that 2021 pledge coming from the FAO, really tackling and making a contribution in the agricultural sector. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm turning my focus now to the International Organization for Migration. Globally, we know that 1 in 8 persons is a migrant, and this, of course, includes children who migrate internally or across national borders, sometimes even without their parents. In the absence of proper documentation, and in countries where legal protection is absent, we know that child migrants are at a high risk of exploitation and are vulnerable to child labor. Please help me welcome Mr. Antonio VITORINO, the Director General of the IOM, for their 2021 Action Pledge. Mr. VITORINO, it's over to you.
Thank you, Nuzepo. As you said, migrant children represent a significant and growing percentage of the migration population worldwide. And children migrate for multiple reasons. Unfortunately, our research shows that migrating children are vulnerable to exploitative practices such as forced labor, harmful and exploitative work, and child trafficking. Some children are lured into their journey by traffickers or others who aim to benefit from the eventual exploitation of abuse of children. As part of our work to protect and assist victims of trafficking, IOM has generated the world's largest database of such cases, which can inform anti-trafficking policy and practice. Very sadly, more than half of the cases captured in these data are children or young people below the age of 25. And this year, IOM commits to work with ILO and to produce the global estimates of modern slavery, forced labor, and forced marriage to ensure that children are appropriately represented in the new global estimates on modern slavery. We must all work together to safeguard the rights of all children, including migrant children. We must better understand the scale of risky child migration and identify and invest in the best means to eradicate these insidious practices and to ensure that children are protected and afforded the service they need for their recovery wherever they are in the world. Thank you.
A very big thank you to you, Mr. VITORINO. Of course, that's the Director General of the IOM, reinforcing the point about data and really having the correct estimates so that we really truly understand the scope of the challenge that we are faced with. I'm turning my focus now, ladies and gentlemen, to the Global Compact and to the UN Global Compact, rather. And I'm going to call on the Executive Director shortly, but we know that UNGC is an organization that continues to push for businesses to uphold the effective abolition of child labor. And so to take the stage next, I'd like to welcome CEO and Executive Director, Madame SANDA OJIAMBO, to speak to us about what is the UN Global Compact's 2021 Action Pledge. Madame, it's over to you.
Thank you, Nuzepo. It's truly been inspiring to hear from Amar Lal and through him visualize this world free of child labor. You know, ending child labor and all forms of forced and compulsory labor is integral to the principles of the UN Global Compact. Our more than 12,000 participating companies and 3,000 non-business signatories are committed to ending these abuses. We believe that children should be in school, not at work. No child should be deprived of a childhood of safety, of health, and education. Children should enjoy recreation, friendship, laughter, and joy. But unfortunately, most companies have not yet moved beyond policy commitments to end child labor and forced labor. So there's a wide gap between business aspiration and business action. And that is why the UN Global Compact pledges that we will work with all our participants this year to step up their due diligence on human rights, to identify, prevent, mitigate, and account for all adverse human rights impacts in their operations and value chains. And through this, we will contribute towards ending the scourge of child labor and forced labor in companies, industries, and communities. To follow up on this pledge that I have made today on behalf of the UN Global Compact, we will organize a private sector event on child labor and forced labor in partnership with the ILO during our UN Global Compact Leaders Summit in June this year. We will invite CEOs of businesses who have taken concrete actions to step up efforts towards eradicating child labor and forced labor to share their learnings so that we can continue inspiring more companies in translating business aspirations into business actions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madame OJIAMBO. We are translating business aspirations into business action. We are stepping up due diligence on human rights. I'm moving now from our UN organizations to regions. I'm going to start off in the European Union. I'm going to start off by looking at a region that is contributing to ending child labor through a range of actions, including inclusive and equitable quality education and decent work. It's my pleasure to hand over now to Mr. NICOLAS SCHMIT, the Commissioner on Jobs and Social Rights on behalf of the European Union for their 2021 Action Pledge. Mr. SCHMIT, it's over to you.
Hello, dear Director General, dear Executive Director, dear Amar Lal, dear participants. I want to thank the International Labour Organization and the Alliance for the opportunity to take part in this important event to kick off the International Year for the Elimination of Child Labour. I congratulate the ILO for the universal ratification of the Worst Forms of Child Labour Convention in August last year. The President of the EU Commission made a very strong political commitment to a zero tolerance to child labor. The upcoming EU strategy on the rights of the child will renew our commitment to strengthening children's rights in both EU internal and external action. And the Commission will propose soon a child guarantee to tackle child poverty. The European Union prohibited child labor in 1994. But we are now concerned that 152 million children around the world are still victims of child labor. Certainly, we have to deal with the root causes of child labor, poverty, social exclusion. But we have to get children out of work, out of exploitation, and into school. That is the right way to fight poverty. Especially girls should have equal access to education, and therefore it's so important to invest overall in education. In line with our commitments from Buenos Aires, the EU engages with various tools of our external policy to address child labor. We have promoted the ratification and effective implementation of ILO child labor conventions in human rights dialogues with other countries and through commitments under our trade policy. As we speak, we are intensifying our capacity on enforcement of the trade commitments made by partner countries. The fight against child labor figures prominently in our action plan on human rights and democracy that the EU member states adopted in 2020. We promote decent work in global supply chains, particularly with Southeast Asia and with Latin America. There is a fundamental responsibility of companies, and especially EU companies, in this respect, wherever they operate. But there is also, obviously, a responsibility of consumers and we are all consumers. We address child labor through projects in garment, conflict minerals, fisheries, agriculture, including the production of cotton. For 2021, we plan a review of our decent work agenda. This review will cover all the ongoing EU initiatives that are linked to the promotion of decent work and elimination of child labor. The European Commission will support very strongly the initiatives taken during this year for the elimination of child labor. This is a target of the UN Sustainable Development Goals strategy. The EU is firmly committed to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, for that contribution. We're talking about zero tolerance and a focus on root causes. Ladies and gentlemen, I move now from regions to countries. Now, these are countries that have committed to going further and going faster to achieve target 8.7. They accelerate efforts, they try new approaches, and they pioneer new collaborations with others. And so we're going to hear first in the starting with Tunisia. We're going to go to His Excellency Minister Mohamed TRABELSI from Tunisia, the Minister of Labor. Now in Tunisia, we know that significant advancement in efforts to eliminate the worst forms of child labor, that those efforts are in play. The government passed the law on the prevention and the fight against trafficking in persons, which covers child labor. Mr. TRABELSI, Your Excellency, sir, the floor is yours.
Bonjour. Bon, nous sommes convaincus que le travail des enfants n'a jamais créé de richesse. Par contre, il a perpétué la pauvreté. Je me rappelle encore de ce riche débat engagé en 1998 au sein de l'OIT sur cette question et qui a dégagé deux analyses traitant le travail des enfants. Une analyse qui se réfère à la pauvreté des ménages et une autre orientée vers l'impact des imperfections du marché des capitaux sur les inégalités et ses conséquences sur l'éducation des enfants. Au fait, je pense que ces deux analyses ne sont pas contradictoires puisqu'elles nous conduisent à la même nécessité de politique nationale basée sur une approche à trois dimensions aussi complémentaires qu'interdépendantes. La lutte contre la pauvreté, la lutte contre le travail des enfants et la lutte contre l'abandon scolaire. Le socle national de protection sociale, avec bien sûr sa composante destinée aux enfants, est dans ce sens une réponse adéquate du BIT à ce défi et une arme universelle et indispensable pour gagner ce triple combat dans les plus brefs délais. Dans ce cadre, je voulais rappeler que le Parlement tunisien a déjà voté en janvier 2019 une loi organique pour engager tout le pays, y compris les partenaires sociaux, dans l'éradication de la pauvreté. Le gouvernement tunisien a en outre entériné en décembre 2019 un projet de loi pour la mise en œuvre du socle de la protection sociale. Il est actuellement objet de consultation avec nos partenaires sociaux avant de le transmettre au Parlement. La Tunisie profite de cette occasion pour réitérer aujourd'hui son engagement inconditionnel à mettre en œuvre des priorités dégagées lors de son atelier stratégique national de l'Alliance 8-7 tenu en mars 2019. Merci.
A very big thank you to Your Excellency TRABELSI for sharing with us the 2021 pledge for Tunisia, and of course bringing a very important element of the conversation, the element of social protection into this broader conversation. I move now, ladies and gentlemen, to Chile, where we're also going to be hearing from the Minister of Labor. Let us be reminded that in 2017, the Chilean government updated its list of hazardous occupations and that prohibited limited for children to be included, of course, in those, and trained labor inspectors on that updated list of hazardous occupations. And in the process of doing that, demonstrating their commitment to eliminating child labor. Please help me welcome Minister María José Zaldívar to kindly please take the floor. Madam, the floor is yours.
Muy buenas tardes. Chile, como pionero de la Alianza 8.7 y como miembro de la Iniciativa Regional América Latina y el Caribe Libre de Trabajo Infantil, y en representación de sus miembros tripartitos, quiere expresar que nos sentimos honrados de haber logrado que el 2021 fuese declarado Año Internacional para la Erradicación del Trabajo Infantil. Para nosotros es muy grato ver cómo la promesa adquirida por la región en la Cuarta Conferencia Mundial del 2017 se ha hecho realidad. Es por esto que para el 2021 nos comprometemos a intensificar la acción tripartita de esta iniciativa regional para acelerar el logro de la meta 8.7 con especial atención al contexto de la recuperación de la crisis del COVID-19 y priorizando, por cierto, el trabajo decente. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Minister Zaldívar, again bringing in some of the building that we are doing on top of the resolutions that came out from Buenos Aires. I'd like to turn my focus now to the country that hosted that fifth global conference, that is Argentina, standing by to welcome the Minister of Labor. We know, of course, that the global conference on the sustained eradication of child labor in 2017 concluded with a number of declarations, including the Buenos Aires Declaration, which explicitly spells out the principles and actions that need to be taken. During this meeting, we saw delegates presenting almost 100 pledges for concrete steps towards the eradication of child labor. Minister Moroni, as you take the floor, what is Argentina's 2021 action pledge, and how does it build on the outcomes of the fifth global conference? Over to you, Your Excellency.
Bueno, en primer lugar, quiero agradecer que su organización tomara esta iniciativa que la Argentina impulsó en Naciones Unidas para que este año sea el de la erradicación del trabajo infantil. Nuestro deseo es que en este año podamos abrir la discusión sobre los factores determinantes que nos llevan a esta situación de emergencia del incremento que estamos viviendo de este flagelo, de naturaleza estructural como es la desigualdad, los déficits en términos de intercambio económico, los límites a las exportaciones de las materias primas en los países centrales, la ausencia de un modelo de desarrollo equitativo en la comunidad internacional que permita la generación de riqueza en nuestros países, que nos oriente hacia modelos eficaces de disminución de la pobreza y desigualdad, como usted lo ha manifestado como una condición necesaria para una nueva convivencia entre todos. La promesa de mi país va a estar unida a nuestra organización política de naturaleza federal, y por eso es una promesa que nos involucra a todos y lo hacemos en nombre de todos, nación, provincias y municipios. Llegar a los sectores más recónditos de la Argentina, reforzando nuestra política de desarrollo para erradicar el trabajo infantil con una acción descentralizada, provincial y municipal, fortaleciendo las comisiones provinciales para la erradicación del trabajo infantil. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Minister Moroni. Again, really committing all levels of government in the fight to end child labor. I move now from Argentina to South Africa, where my Minister of Labor, Mr. THULAS, is standing by. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we know we've just moved from the host of the fifth global conference to the host of the sixth global conference in 2022, one of the events that DG from the ILO had highlighted. And this is a country whose constitution specifically protects children from exploitative labor practices. And so it's over to you, Minister Nlesi, as you share with us South Africa's action pledge for 2021.
Thank you, Program Director, the ILO DG, Mr. Guy Ryder. Esteemed guests, all protocol observed. We begin 2021 armed with the ratification by the ILO member states of Convention 182 on the worst forms of child labor including slavery, prostitution, and trafficking. The UN has declared 2021 as the International Year for the Elimination of Child Labour, a milestone in reaching the Sustainable Development Goal, Target 8.7. For South Africa, a host of the 5th Global Conference on Sustainable Eradication of Child Labour and Forced Labour in 2022, we fully support the call to celebrate this year with concrete commitments. South Africa's Child Labour Programme of Action provides the country with a concrete roadmap towards the prevention, reduction, and eventual elimination of child labour. We therefore declare our commitment to eradicate child labour and call upon all social partners to accelerate efforts to end child labour in all its forms by 2025. Thank you.
A very big thank you to Minister THULAS from South Africa. I'm going to make my way now to the United States, and we're going to be speaking shortly with the Associate Deputy Undersecretary for International Affairs. Now, the United States has since the 1900s pushed to eliminate child labor. We've seen this in debates and efforts such that the conversation has become central to social reform as early as the 1900s. I turn now to Mr. Mark Mittelhauser, the Associate Deputy Undersecretary for International Affairs at the US Department of Labor. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Nozi. Director General Ryder and honored guests, thank you for the opportunity to participate in this important inaugural event today. The United States remains absolutely committed to addressing child labor and to improving the lives of vulnerable children throughout the world. In 1995, the US Department of Labor funded our first project to combat child labor internationally. And since that time, we have supported international efforts to prevent and to reduce child labor in nearly 100 countries. These efforts include funding more than 300 technical assistance projects, conducting and publishing research on child labor in over 130 countries, and actively working with our partners engaged in the struggle around the world, including many of you. While we have undoubtedly seen progress in the past 2 decades, we are also acutely aware that many of those gains could be lost due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. In this challenging context, the International Year for the Elimination of Child Labor presents a crucial opportunity for all of us to redouble our efforts to create a world free of child labor. Today, the United States renews our commitment to this essential task, not only for 2021, but for the years to come, as we finalize our pledges in coming weeks to take concrete, meaningful actions to eradicate child labor under the Biden administration. We are proud to stand with all of you to promote a world in which, as President Biden has said, internationally recognized human rights and fundamental freedoms are each equally the entitlement of all. Thank you.
A very big thank you to Mark Mittelhauser. We do appreciate the renewed commitment that you have reminded us will be coming from this administration, which I believe is 24 hours old. So it's fantastic to have your voice into this conversation. I'd like to turn to West Africa now. We're going to Nigeria, ladies and gentlemen, where we're going to be hearing from the Minister of Labor and Employment, Minister Chris Ngige. We know that in Nigeria, there are domestic laws such as the Child Rights Act that are in play. And now we listen in for the 2021 Action Pledge. Minister Ngige, the floor is yours. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to pick up. I think we might just have a technical challenge. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to pick up and hopefully come back to Minister Ngige in Nigeria as soon as possible. What we are going to do is turn our focus now and continue with our conversation by looking to the social partners that are such a critical part of this conversation, of this launch event, of the year ahead, and of course of the journey towards 2025. I'm going to start off with the International Trade Union Confederation, which we know has always advocated that removing children out of global supply chains is a matter of responsible business and a matter of political will. It's my pleasure now to welcome Sharon Barrow, the General Secretary of ITUC, to hear from her on their action pledge. Madame Barrow, it's over to you.
Thank you. Indeed, child labour remains a scourge against humanity. It is a matter of responsible business and it is a matter of political will. This is the year to demonstrate collective responsibility to ensure children have a childhood with quality education so that they can look forward optimistically to life choices that too many are denied. This means the world needs a new social contract where their parents can count on a quality job, where human and labour rights are respected, and they can count on social protection as resilience against unemployment or other family, national or global shocks. We pledge as a global movement to intensify our campaign for a new social contract where mandated due diligence and disclosures holds companies to account through their supply chains, particularly in agriculture, manufacturing, mining, those centres that are prevalent in child labour. And we will escalate the demand for universal social protection with the call for a global social protection fund to close the funding gap to ensure families in our poorest countries do not face the heartbreaking choice of seeing their children forced to work for their very survival. Children's right to protection from exploitation enshrined in ILO Convention 182 has been indeed ratified by every ILO member state. That's something to celebrate. But there are 14 countries yet to ratify the ILO Minimum Working Age Convention 138, and they must step up now. Ratification, yes, but also implementation and indeed compliance. Governments can and must ensure compliance. We can accept, none of us can accept any more excuses. Let's end the scourge of child labour and labour, the movement of labour. Workers around the world and their families stand with you. Thank you.
A very big thank you to Madame Barrow. We're hearing a move from just pledges, a move from ratification towards implementation, towards compliance, and of course, moving away from making any excuses. I'm turning my focus now to the International Organization of Employers. This is an organization that we know, in the spirit of finding solutions, has led the work of building guidelines to improve global supply chain governance, to improve due diligence and remediation processes in order to end child labor. And so today we hear from the Secretary General, Mr. Roberto Suarez Santos, on the IOE's action in this international year. Mr. Suarez Santos, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you, Natifo. Really nice to be here. We are delighted to be here. Yes, we cannot allow the pandemic to put at risk the progress undertaken in recent years in the fight against child labor. We in IOE want to contribute to the International Year for the Elimination of Child Labour with a specific, strong and concrete commitments on 3 areas. First, our most valuable asset is our network. Independent and representative business organizations in more than 140 countries. They represent more than 50 million companies. But they are critical, influential voices, not just to shape policies to combat child labor, but more importantly, to support governments in the adequate implementations on educational policies, employment policies, and CSR policies. We aim at achieving this year the explicit and strong engagement of at least all the most representative local business organizations in the countries of the Alliance 8.7 in this fight against child labor. That's one of the commitments that we have. Second, we want to build on successful policies to eradicate child labor. we will launch this year an award plan to incentivize innovative approaches for the eradication of child labor among our members and partner companies, but also among the different partnerships in which they are involved. Third, at company level, we aim at identifying and acting on the best lessons learned. We will strengthen our peer learning and capacity building among our big network executive companies and members. For that, we aim to collaborate with different stakeholders, in particular also with the UN Global Compact. All these three commitments will be reported because we want to know what has been the impact and how we can learn from there. Count on our commitment, count on our engagement to eradicate child labor and to achieve the goal of eradicating with the deadline of the SDG. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Suarez Santos, and of course, underscoring how each of the three commitments that you have shared with us will be reported. And so the spirit of accountability coming through loud and clearly in that 2021 Action Pledge. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we've heard from UN organizations, we've heard from regions, we've heard from Pathfinder countries, we've heard from social partners, all of them putting forward their 2021 action pledges. And now to pull it all together, I'd like to invite the chair of Alliance 8.7, an inclusive global partnership committed to achieving target 8.7 of the Sustainable Development Goals. It's my pleasure to welcome Anousheh Kavar. Madame Kavar, as you join us, perhaps a question to you. How will the Alliance leverage its global coordinating capacity to act, to inspire, and to scale up such that the pledges that are made here today translate to action on the ground? Over to you.
Thank you, Nosy. Thank you, General Director Guy Ryder, and also all honorable guests and participants. It's truly a pleasure to be with you all for the launch of the International Year for the Elimination of Child Labour. As Chair of Alliance 8.7, I sincerely welcome the 2021 action pledges that have been put forward today. I'm particularly pleased to acknowledge the commitment from the Alliance 8.7 Pathfinder countries, Chile, Nigeria, and Tunisia. Hopefully we'll hear about Nigeria quite soon. And I know that together with many other Pathfinder countries, all are working on their pledges to be ready by March 30 deadline. The Alliance, as custodian of the pledges, as you said, Nosy, shoulders a big responsibility, bringing together partners and their commitments, coordinating their action, sharing good practices, and reporting progress. 2021 will be therefore a special year for deepening our engagement towards action with Pathfinder countries. Now that the institutional setup is well established, it is time more than ever to go further with implementation on the ground around 4 lines. First, we will make sure that on-the-ground action will be undertaken in an inclusive manner, bringing together our partners and their constituencies. Second, the Alliance 8.7 is in the process of establishing a monitoring, evaluation, and accountability framework to keep track of progress made and to assess where countries are in need of further support. Third, in order to have an overall view of where we collectively stand, new global estimates on child labor will be published under the umbrella of the Alliance 8.7 in partnership with the ILO and UNICEF in June for the 2021 World Day Against Child Labor. These global estimates will include an assessment of how the pace of progress towards ending the child labor is likely to be affected by the COVID-19 pandemic and the unprecedented economic crisis that has accompanied it. Because of the pandemic effects, and this is the fourth point, this year presents a crucial opportunity to overcome the challenges posed by COVID-19 and to show the world that eradicating child labor is possible by doubling our efforts to address its root causes. This could be done through effective law enforcement, universal access to quality education and social protection, and resolute fight against extreme poverty. Dear Nosy, along these lines, Alliance 8.7 will soon submit its own overarching 2021 action pledge, bringing together the pledges delivered by all its partners, governments, international organizations, social partners, businesses, and NGOs. Thank you very much.
We thank you very much, Madame Kavar, giving us a really good sense of how your global coordinating capacity is really going to pull these pledges such that we are moving, as Mr. Kailash Satyarthi said, from inertia to decisive action. Now, ladies and gentlemen, earlier on, I promised you a video. It did play, but we couldn't quite hear the sound. So I'm going to ask my team to share this with us once again so that we might really build on what Madame Kavar has said and get a sense of how the pledges work and how the 2021 pledges work, rather. So for now, please enjoy this short video.
Kids have wild imaginations. Their laughter can light up a room. They love to explore, play, and discover. Everyone has the right to a happy and safe childhood. That's why the United Nations has declared 2021 the International Year for the Elimination of Child Labor. Starting now, we're asking regions, countries, organizations, and individuals to join our mission to end child labor by making a 2021 action pledge. This commitment is the first step in our three-pillar strategy. Act. Choose a specific action that contributes to ending child labor. Inspire. Share your journey through stories and experiences. Scale up. Build upon your experience with fellow changemakers. Each action pledge will pave the way to ending child labor by 2025. Are you ready to submit yours? The deadline is 30 March. For children everywhere, let's get started. Together, we can make a difference. Visit endchildlabor2021.org or email us at 2021@alliance87.org for more information.
Are you ready to make a difference? This is one of the questions that this video offers, and how wonderful that beyond organizations that you and I too can make a difference. Now, one of the things that Amar's story showed us is that each and every one of us can take action. Our actions might be big, our actions might be small. His challenge that he put to us at the beginning of our conversation was not just for the leaders that we've heard from today, but it really was for me, and it certainly was for you too. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to share with you now a short illustration of how you can take action throughout the year and how you can embrace the invitation that we've just heard from Madame Kavar to act, to inspire, and to scale up. Here's a short video about your participation and my participation and what that could look like. Child labor. This website is your hub for the year. You'll find information about child labor, ideas on how to get involved, and all the latest updates. On the Take Action page, you'll find a section dedicated to stakeholders. Clicking here brings you to the Stakeholder Actions page, where you can create your 2021 Action Pledge. You can also reference the practical guide for more details on how you can act, inspire, and scale up in 2021. Individuals can take action too. We can't wait to see your journeys and encourage you to share something every month throughout 2021. Check out the latest page for updates on campaigns, events, competitions, and other initiatives that you can explore online. Mark your calendar for these upcoming dates. In February, we will launch a music competition for professional and amateur musicians. World Day Against Child Labour takes place on the 12th of June. In July, there will be a side event featuring Pathfinder countries during the High-Level Political Forum. September marks the United Nations General Assembly, and the FAO Conference on Agriculture will take place in November. After the event, explore the website at endchildlabour2021.org. It's 2021. It's time to take action for children. Together, we can make a difference. Definitely, ladies and gentlemen, it's 2021. It's time to take action. It's time to come together and make a difference. And that really brings us to the end of what has been an incredible launch event. What is left for us to do now is to go off in the spirit of collective action, to put our shoulders to the wheel as we—
Shaba, let me say hello to everybody before you close.
2025. May I kindly ask to mute, if the team can mute the microphone that's unmuted at this moment. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to pick up on the point that we are going to be putting our shoulders to the wheel as we pursue to end child labor by 2025. And this includes ending forced labor, human trafficking, and modern slavery by 2030. Let's remember, ladies and gentlemen, that in every country and in every region, there are still those who, like Amar in his childhood, are crushing stones. There are still those that are working underground in mines or facing dangers every day on the streets where they are. There is absolutely just no time to lose. And so we urgently need to accelerate our action. We need to accelerate our progress to reach the 2025 target. And so 2021 becomes for us, ladies and gentlemen, a crucial opportunity for everyone from all walks of life to get involved, to create a snowball effect into a worldwide movement to end child labor. I appeal to all our viewers who have watched us today to join the call and to take action in this year. As we've just seen in the video, as individuals, we can also make a pledge on behalf of our organization. Every action counts, and acting together in unison and acting in solidarity is the only way that we're going to move forward together so that we might consign child labor to the history books. And so the next event for the International Year actually takes place right now, immediately after we say goodbye. And so I invite you all to join the launch of the Fair Share campaign to end child labor that has been organized by the Kailash Satyarthi Children's Foundation. To each and every one of you who joined us from every corner of the world, to each and every one of the speakers that joined us today, for every pledge for which we are grateful, thank you very much. May this step be the first to lead to new futures for children in every corner of the world. From myself, Nozipho Shabalala, at the tip of the African continent in Johannesburg, it's goodbye for now.